Hey, this is Gen X Amplified episode number 26. And today, this is a very special episode because we are going to take a trip down memory lane and recap season 1 of Gen X Amplified. That's right. And we're even going to play some sound bites and showcase some key takeaways from our exceptional guest. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
So we're actually an incredibly lucky generation because we have technological advances that the millennials have, but we also have the experience to know a little bit more about the world.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified, the podcast where we showcase the powerful generation of leaders and game changers between the millennials and boomers. Welcome back. And first, I want to say Happy New Year. Happy 2016. Welcome. Thank you for listening in. I really do appreciate it. Now, I know some of you may be wondering, Adrian, where have you been? Where has the podcast been? Yes, I know that it's been some time since I last published an episode. Well, that was intentional. I took a little hiatus, a little online sabbatical, not just from the podcast, actually, from a lot of social media activities and online. And I wanted to just regroup, refresh, and recharge the batteries, basically. It was during the holidays and there was a lot going on last year, actually the year in general, but I just took some time to take a step back, look at and listen to everything, do some self-inventory and just recharge the batteries. And it was intentional, but I am back in full effect. It is 2016 and trust me, we are just getting started because I have some huge and massive things that we have planned this year that I'm excited about, not only for this podcast, but for some other projects as well that I have lined up in the future. But for now, everyone, let's shift our focus back to talk about this episode and this show, because this is a very special episode because I want to take time to celebrate 2015, the first season of Gen X Amplified and the first 25 episodes. That is right. We launched and we have made it to 25 episodes, and this is episode number 26, and I am so excited because this has been a journey, a big journey, and I am so glad and fortunate, and I tell you, I appreciate you, the listeners, because you are the ones that have really kept this afloat. I've gotten a lot of great reviews, a lot of great downloads, a lot of kudos, and I do this all for you, and I'm glad that we're able to do the first season. This is probably, I would consider this the last episode of season 1. We're going to come back with season 2 very soon, maybe even next week, with the new approach and new episodes, new interviews. But for this episode, I wanted to take time to recap some of the highlights from the interviews and showcase some key episodes from the first 25. And that means I'm actually going to play some sound bites, some clips from some selected episodes. Now, I must say this was so hard to narrow down which clips and which episodes I wanted to showcase, because every single conversation, every single interview, every single personal story that we heard from each guest was golden. And I really mean that. But because of timing and because of, how much time I wanted this episode to have, I had to narrow it down. And so I selected the ones that I'm going to showcase, probably from the ones that I believe were the most popular as far as number of downloads, feedback. But again, it was very difficult for me, and every guest, every person, every conversation was valuable and golden. So And also, there were 2 solo episodes that I had last year during the first 25 episodes. Episode number 20, where I talked about setting long-term goals and thinking about your life and your business 5 years from now. And also episode number 24, called The 5 Key Elements That Define Your Brand. So definitely check those 2 out. Actually, check out all the episodes from 1 to 25. That's the wonder of podcast as an on-demand medium. You can listen to all the episodes, all the content. They're all available to you whenever you want. So let's get back and focus on this episode, number 26, and the look back, or I should say listen back and recap. I had many great guests, and I want to take time to single out around 15, I should say, guests. There were some key highlights and play some clips. And I'm going to start with the first one, which is probably my most popular episode based on feedback and things that I've gotten. It's from episode number 21 with the great Gretchen Rubin. That's right, Gretchen Rubin, the author of her recent book, Better Than Before, Mastering the Habits of Everyday Life. She is a content creator phenomenon, as I called her. She's a blogger, podcaster. She has her own podcast called Happier with Gretchen Rubin that she co-hosts with her sister, Elizabeth. It's a great podcast. Definitely check it out. But she was on the show to talk about her latest book, Better Than Before. And she really got us to some valuable nuggets about establishing great habits, goal setting. And on this particular clip that I'm going to play, she really speaks directly to Gen Xers about how to best approach establishing good habits and making resolutions, especially for the new year. Take a listen.
No, you're right. I mean, Gen X is in the rush hour of life.
Yes.
You know, that's the fact of it. And one thing is to revel in it, is to think, what a happy time it is when my children are still under my roof every night, and how, and to think about that. But here's one thing I would say when you're making resolutions, and this is a problem that I see for a lot of people. Like a lot of the ones that you threw out are certainly among the most common that I hear over and over again. But when you're making a resolution, it's very important to be extremely specific with yourself. So something like, I want to spend more time with my kids. That sounds specific, but it is not specific. Because what does that mean? Because what you need to do with the habit is you have to have some kind of behavior that, like, can you monitor it? Can you, have all these strategies you can use can you make it more convenient? Can you make it less convenient to break it? There are all these things that you can do, but you have to be very clear. That's the strategy of clarity about what it is you're expecting from yourself. So let's say you want to spend more time with your kids. Okay. So you could say from between 6 and 9 p.m., I'm not going to look at my phone. Right? Okay, so that's a very specific thing. From 6 to 9 p.m., you're not going to look at your phone. Okay, so then you can do things that it's going to make it easier to keep that habit. Make it very inconvenient to look at your phone. If you walk around with your phone in your back pocket of your jeans, you're going to look at your phone. Like, that is just the fact of the matter. So turn your phone off, put it in, your coat pocket, and hang up the coat and shut the closet door. So if you start getting sweaty and shaky because you've got to check your phone, you've got to go get it and turn it on and get it out of your coat pocket. It's not just right there on the counter.
So that was Gretchen Rubin from the episode number 21. Great stuff. And she, again, is phenomenal content creator. She has been on many shows, television shows. She's been on the Today Show. She was actually interviewed also by Oprah Winfrey herself on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday show that's on the OWN network. And Gretchen is doing some amazing things. Great book, Better Than Before. Definitely encourage you to read it, and also encourage you to listen to her podcast and listen to her interview with me. Episode 21, Gen X Amplified. Now, our next showcase actually is a very special one because he was the very first guest on Gen X Amplified, Mr. Chris Brogan. That is right. He is definitely one of the original leaders in this game of new media, and he is the CEO of Owner Media Group. He's a public speaker. He is a many times over New York Times bestselling author of many books. and he's working on his next one. But he graced us with his presence on Gen X Amplified as our first guest, and he really talked about generational leadership and new media. And on this particular clip, he talked about how the younger generations, in addition to us as Gen Xers and the older generations, how we can really get a lot of value from working with each other, really coupling new and fresh ideas with kind of the established older ideas, how you can see the best in both. So this is a great soundbite from our conversation, episode number 1. Chris Brogan, take a listen.
One of the things that I do, especially with, kind of younger generations than me, is, I say that we all have the same starting and ending points. It seems like we all think that, we know so much more than the people that are older than us. Right. And we think that all the older people feel like they know everything. And there's always that kind of brawl between fresh, young ideas and, crazy, old, established ideas. And I always say that the best way to be sort of a younger generation type is to remember that there's the best in both. Your new ideas are going to get you to a whole other place, but it doesn't hurt to hear the wisdom, to understand that wisdom, and to kind of sort of push out, what parts are going to be helpful. I think it's almost like we have to have, deep legacy learning and amnesia at the same time.
Right.
Because you can't create new things by following the past, but they always say that the past is doomed to repeat itself if you don't know anything about it. And I find that more people fail on that side than any other side.
Oh, I really love that chat with Chris. And again, being our first episode for the podcast, it was a very special one. He anointed the show with his presence. But Grace gave some great valuable tips on generational leadership, how, it's really good to be servant leaders. Think about branding. I'm thinking about why generational labels can be important sometimes. And, he talked about his parents as baby boomers. They're not the typical baby boomers. He also, which was pretty cool and clever, he snuck in some lyrics to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song in one of his answers. So definitely check it out. But again, episode number 1 with Chris Brogan, great conversation. Really enjoyed having him on the show. So next up, the next showcase from season 1 is episode number 16 with Jay Papasan, who is the co-author of the groundbreaking book titled The One Thing. I tell you, if there was a book last year that you probably heard more about, I'd show that book to me. The One Thing really broke out last year. And the book is really all about why it's important for everyone to stop and focus on that one thing, to not multitask, if you want to accomplish your goals and really succeed in life, why you should take a task, take a project, and focus on that to completion. And many of us, and I fall victim to this as well, we multitask to no end, and we end up getting nothing done. So it was a great chat with Jay. He co-wrote the book with Gary Keller, his business partner. And again, just a groundbreaking book. And on this particular clip, which I pulled, it was fascinating because he talked about the principles of focusing on that one thing that's important in your life, in your business. And he chose to tell a personal story about his marriage and how he and his wife, wonderful wife, they focus on their relationship and cultivating that. And I thought it was a great takeaway. And so check this out, listen, and enjoy.
We have a very strong partnership. Mm-hmm. She's a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. We challenge one another. And I feel sure she got in my face and told me the honest truth, not in a yelling match or anything. Just like, Hey, Jay, I've noticed this. We need to work on it because it's a problem.
Okay.
And we have that kind of relationship. But now, every year we go on a retreat at the end of the year. It's something we look forward to. We just do an overnight in a hotel locally. We don't even travel, but we get an overnight babysitter and we plan out our next year. And in the book on page 114, I have no idea where that is in your audiobook, but we talk about the 7 areas of your life where you apply the one thing: your spiritual life, your physical life, your key relationships, et cetera. And we kind of go through that. Like, what's our one thing for our relationship? And, that was one of the things that we focused on for a period of time. For me, it was transitioning. Today we have a date night. Every Wednesday night. We picked Wednesdays because we could reliably do it. Because if you pick Saturdays, you can't get a babysitter.
Right.
And if we wanted to have it, right, we wanted to make it repetitive and almost automatic, then we had to do it on a Wednesday night. And so, like, everybody in our world knows, hey, last night was date night. What'd y'all do?
Right.
And we've been doing that for years. So we just kind of pick a power habit in the areas that matter, and we make a stand around that thing.
Wow, that was Jay Papasan from episode 16, author of The One Thing. Wow, great, great insights, great personal insights. I loved how he shared that, and I really took that to heart. Being a married guy, being a father of 2 kids now, it's really important to focus on the things that matter to you in your life, and not just business, but in life. So, episode 16, Jay Papasan. Next up, we have the guest from episode number 3, Mr. Paul C. Brunson, who is a phenomenal entrepreneur, television host, speaker, social media expert, coach, consultant, and he's also the founder of a top-rated matchmaking company called the PCB Agency. That's right. I had a matchmaker on Gen X Amplified. That's how we do it. But great guy. He has a phenomenal story going from the traditional corporate finance route up to really building his business with his wife. And he talked about a lot of great things during this episode. He talked about not only entrepreneurship, but marriage and relationships and really taking care of things closer to home. So great conversation. And on this particular soundbite that I'm going to play for you, he talked about how all of us are unique, and we have a unique story, and all of us are able to be world class in what we choose to do. And I love that because that is so aligned with my purpose, my mission, and the mission of the show. So check it out.
To me, we all have the ability to be and I truly believe this, we all have the ability to be world class in something, right? We each have a unique skill set that no one else has. We all have unique experiences that no one else has and no one else will. And so we have the ability to curate that and share that and apply that in a way like no one else can. And so we all have the ability to be world class. The issue is that we like to just kind of dabble at everything. And so when I think back to, my history, for example, is I'll scratch the itch and then listen. I'll scratch the itch, but then look for traction. And if I'm listening and I'm not getting anything back, or I see that there's no traction, I pivot. And the key with entrepreneurship, and I see this among all of the top entrepreneurs, you just named so many great folks, from the Chris Brogans and the Michael Hyatts, is that what I see what these guys do, and women, what they all do is they all know how to listen and they all know how to pivot. And so just to, kind of summarize all of that is get your self-love right, right? Then get the home life right? Then from there, focus on one thing. And that one thing should be the one thing you believe you could be world class at. And look for traction, look for a positive response. And if you don't get that, it doesn't mean that you completely shut it down and stop. It just means you pivot just slightly, and then you listen again, right? And then you look for the traction again. And then if it's not there, then you just pivot slightly. And you keep doing that again and again and again.
Yes, Paul was breaking it down for us. Yeah, we all have the ability to be world class. I love that. That is definitely a tweetable statement. He talked about pivoting, the importance of listening. Also, if you listen, he talked about not only business wise, but he talked about balancing your home life, the importance of getting that right before you can succeed as an entrepreneur or as a professional. So I love that he highlighted that aspect of being world class in everything that you do. Paul C. Brunson from episode number 3. Now, next up, I want to showcase one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite episodes, the phenomenal, excellent Dory Clark from episode number 2. And I say that because, I'm all about personal brand building, and she is literally the personal brand expert guru. She is an author. Her first book, Reinventing You, Define Your Brand, Imagine Your Future was her groundbreaking standout book, but then, pun intended, her latest book is called Stand Out, that she launched last year, and that's why she was on the show. The full title is Stand Out: How to Find Your Breakthrough Idea and Build a Following Around It. And I loved having Dory on because she talked about the importance of really finding out your strengths, your calling, and standing out so you can advance your professional growth on your job or as an entrepreneur. And that's what we're all about here, is helping Gen Xers understand their unique strengths and greatness and brand and amplifying that so they can break out. So she brought a lot of value to the conversation. And on this clip, she spoke directly to Gen Xers and how in this marketplace, in this digital media economy that we're in right now, we really need to take advantage of that. We really also need to take advantage of our brand in the workplace, because when the millennials are coming in and Gen Zs and some of us are feeling squeezed, we really need to stand out and really think about our skill sets and passions and talents. So take a listen and be empowered.
And also find ways to give back. So, I mean, maybe one of your friends, Adrian, says, you know what, I was thinking of starting a podcast. Adrian does a really cool job. I want to learn about that from him. Mm-hmm. And, so that's, you can be a mentor in that regard. That's powerful. But bottom line here, Gen X needs to seize the reins. If you are not standing out in the workforce, it is a critical mistake, because that is the ultimate form of job security, is having a strong personal brand, being known for a certain area of expertise, and making sure that people understand that hey, in this realm, you are the expert, you are the go-to person, and that's a reason why they should be promoting you, putting you forward, and looking to you for advice, rather than saying, oh well, she's pretty interchangeable.
Gen X needs to seize the reins. Did you hear that? Great, valuable tip, great feedback, great value from Dory Clark, episode number 2. Love that chat. Next up, I want to showcase and highlight our guest from episode number 18. Wow, Mr. Michael Port. You talk about a leader when it comes to public speaking. He is a very popular branding expert and speaker, and he used to be an actor. Mr. Michael Port, a professional actor. He's been on certain shows such as Sex and the City and Law and Order, and movies like The Pelican Brief. And now he is well known of helping individuals become better speakers, helping individuals really build their brand, just really making it in this marketplace that we're in now. And his latest book, titled Steal the Show: From Speeches to Job Interviews to Deal Closing Pitches, How to Guarantee a Standing Ovation for All the Performances in Your Life, is a great book that he launched last year. And he was on the show to talk about that. And I loved our conversation because he is a Gen Xer that is really doing some massive things. And on this particular clip, he actually spoke about being a Gen Xer and how we are lucky as a generation because we have the opportunities that all the other younger generations have. So take a listen and enjoy. And I love this conversation.
It's just extraordinary, the opportunities we have.
Right.
This is something that I created for myself here. And I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't have done this 20 years ago. Right. I mean, we wouldn't have the technology for it. We couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So we're actually an incredibly lucky generation because we have the technological advances that the millennials have, but we also have the experience to learn to know a little bit more about the world. So we have those two things going for us, which is really quite extraordinary. I mean, I'm much more. I enjoy being 44 a lot more than I did being 34.
So that was Michael Port from episode number 18, Mr. Steal the Show himself. He also has a podcast called Steal the Show as well. Definitely a great podcast. Take a listen. And also take a listen to the full episode here on Gen X Amplified with my conversation with Michael Port. Next up, I want to highlight episode 23 with someone who probably doesn't really need an introduction, but we're going to do it. He is Scott Monty, and he used to be the global head of social media for Ford Motor Company. I mean, you talk about someone who is a social media and digital marketing expert. He has done it for probably one of the, if not the biggest brand, automobile brands, at least in the world. He has a fascinating story. And on the show, on the episode, he talked about his path to becoming the head of social media for Ford Motor Company, and also his recent transition into entrepreneurship. He just launched his own company, his own consultancy, and we had an awesome value-packed conversation. And on this particular clip, he talked about how we as Gen Xers, how we can establish ourselves as thought leaders, because many of us are looking to become a thought leader in something that we're skilled at. But he really talked about the best approach of doing that. So take a listen.
So as you're thinking about, establishing some thought leadership, understand what the greater purpose is. If it's for the sake of your own career, which is fine, then there are outlets to go to consider that. Whether it's building your own site, and it's easier than ever now with, whether it's Bluehost or Squarespace or whatever you want to use.
Right.
Building a site now from scratch is fairly easy. It's a matter of participating where other people that you want to influence are, or people that have already influenced you. A great way to do that is to comment on their content. Mm-hmm. And as we've said for years, make this a conversation. And it's only by people getting to know you mm-hmm. that they will grant you the title of thought leader. And I like you said before, I don't like the term guru. Now, that comes with a proviso. I will not call myself a guru. If other people want to call me a guru, that's their business.
Right.
It's the same thing with thought leadership. You can't call yourself a thought leader. It's what your peers grant upon you that matters.
That was Scott Monty, the clip from the episode number 23. Great, smart guy. We had a really, really good conversation. If you listen to the entire episode, we even talked about not only Ford Motor Company and social media, we even talked about Beethoven, believe it or not. But great, fruitful conversation. Episode 23. Next up, another great interview I had with a phenomenal, just a good guy. Mr. C. Chapman from episode number 10. And he is an author of one of my favorite books that I read a couple years back called Content Rules. And it is essentially the content marketing Bible, in my opinion, that he co-wrote with Ann Hadley. He and Ann wrote a phenomenal book that really gives a lot of great insights on how to become a better content marketer. But he is really focusing now on helping people do more good in the world. That is his brand. He's also very prolific when it comes to social media, marketing. He's doing some great things. And we talked about during the episode, not only his personal journey as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as an author, but he also talked about the importance of doing good in the world and how generations, especially Gen Xers, we are looking for more fulfillment when it comes to professional growth, and not just focused on monetary success, but also just doing good in the world. So take a listen.
Now, every day there's some new cause or commercial. And I think, I look at my kids and, they're 16 and 14 and mm-hmm. how much more they're exposed to giving, and the fact that, I lead by example and they see me, why'd you buy that product over that product? And we talk about it. I think it's just much more common. But like you said, it's not just the millennials. The millennials are just more exposed to it. But I also think, especially for Gen Xers, we get to a point in our life where, a lot of us are at our point in our career where we've done a lot of things, and we realize, wait, there's more to this than just the corporate ladder. I want to work for a company that cares about their employees and embraces families, or isn't polluting the world. I think every age is going to care more and more about that, and it's certainly not going to ever change going forward because every generation is going to care about it more.
So that was C. Chapman from episode number 10. Great conversation. Definitely follow him on Twitter, follow him on Snapchat, follow him on all the platforms. He is very active on many of them. He was actually he is probably what they call an OG in podcasting game. He started podcasting years ago, and he actually talked about that during our episode. So definitely check it out. Now, we go from CC to CD with episode number 11 with my chat with the one and only Chris Ducker, or should I say Ducka, as many people call him. Now, I will tell you this. This conversation that I had with Chris Ducker was probably the most fun I had on the podcast. And if you listen to the entire episode, you definitely will understand why. And if you've already listened, then you know what I'm talking about. First of all, he's a great guy. His brand, he's known as the virtual CEO because his company, Virtual Staff Finder, their premise is all about helping people utilize virtual assistants to build their business. And he is the best-selling author of the book called Virtual Freedom: How to Work with Virtual Staff to Buy More Time, Become More Productive, and Build Your Dream Business. And we talked a lot about personal branding, which I know that he's a big fan of, and he knows that I am. And the importance of being yourself, because now he has also launched a new brand, a membership site called youpreneur.com, and he's rebranded his podcast. Now it's titled Youpreneur FM. And because he is all about helping people, business leaders, utilize the power of themselves, being you, the business of you. And on this particular clip, he talked about that, about why it's important for you to be yourself. And the things that you do will attract the people that you need to do business with. And it's a very interesting clip, and we actually had a little fun with it as well. So take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, it is the business of you. It's your stories.
Right.
It's your personality. It's your experience. It's your vision. It's your mission. It's your vibe. Your vibe will attract your tribe. The way that you act will attract the right people towards you. I often call it marketing like a magnet, where you want to attract the best and then repel the rest. And that's exactly. Why do I feel like I sound like Apollo Creed right now? I don't know. From the Rocky movies, right?
Have you seen the new trailer for Creed? You probably in this. Well, I'm a big Rocky
dude. How good is that going to be?
I am a huge. We don't even. I have all films like the Blu-rays down in my. No, I'm a big. But Creed. Creed. Oh my God. But you
amazing.
I know. Well, you mentioned a definitely a tweetable, which I love, and I wasn't going to let you get away with. You said your vibe will attract your tribe.
That's right.
Man, I love that.
That's right. It will do. And, that's why it's so important to be you all the time. Yes, you might upset a few people. Yes, you're probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but that's okay. They're the people that are not going to end up giving you any money anyway. Like they're not interested in having you helping them change or create a mindset shift or become more successful or do magical things. They're not interested in that. Right. If they were, then they wouldn't be like that in the first place. So like I said, market like a magnet. Attract the best, repel the rest. Think about Apollo Creed.
So what did I tell you? I did that, and I'll say that was only a small part of the fun we had during the conversation. You got to listen to the entire episode, but Chris dropped a lot of value bombs, lots of value bombs, but we also coupled it with some great humor and some singing, believe it or not. We sung on the episode, believe it or not. But great chat, Mr. Chris Ducker, Mr. Youpreneur himself. Listen to that, episode number 11. Next up, we have the lovely, the likable, the lively Lucretia Braxton. She is what I call a quintessential Renaissance Gen Xer. She is the host of a new podcast called Hello Friend. She is a speaker, and during our podcast, she interviews other guests about how they live their life, why and how they are simply just awesome. And she was a great guest, very funny as well, very down to earth. And she's a photographer, a prolific photographer, speaker, and we really had a fun, lively conversation. And, on this clip, she talked about the importance of being of service and having a service mindset in order to succeed. And also why you should love and hug and embrace people that may hate on you. And she really dropped some value. So take a listen.
If you are always thinking from a service mindset, what can I do to help someone else? You cannot fail. It's as simple as that. You take yourself out of it, and how can I help someone else? It's always been what I've been about, is how can I help someone else that's why I made no money as a photographer, is because I wanted people to have beautiful pictures. The podcast is something so selfish that I do for myself because I love talking to people. I can run my mouth. And the podcast allows me to do that and connect with people and to hear their stories. It's completely a selfish indulgence for me that I love. And everything I have done in some way, I don't want to die with any regrets. And I tell my kids, no matter what, you do what you love. You find a way to do it. You find a way to make some money from it. You find a way to help people. If you do that, you cannot fail. It's as simple as that. And if you do fail, who cares? Failure is not a bad thing. Failure lets you know it's time to pivot. Try something different. Mm-hmm. It's all it is. Failure is never a bad thing. I'm like, bring it on. Fail faster and fail forward. It's as simple as that. You do that, you treat people right, you be a good person, you love on haters, you'll be just fine.
I love that. Love on haters. Lucretia Braxton, episode number 15. Great chat. Next up, we are about to ignite because on episode number 8, we had the great conversation with the one and only John Lee Dumas, JLD from eofire.com. That is this podcast. I'm stumbling thinking about the podcast, and you'll hear why, because John Lee Dumas, he interviews people 7 days a week on his podcast. That's right. I don't know how he does it, but he does it, and he is crushing it. EO Fire, he is really doing his thing. And we had a great chat on episode number 8, and he talked about his journey. He has a very fascinating journey from being over in Iraq to finding his purpose, finding his zone of genius, as he says, and really launching this great groundbreaking podcast. And on this particular clip that I want to play, he talked about finding your zone of genius, finding that part of you that couples your experiences and your skill sets with your passions. And that's how we as Gen Xers, even as people that are millennials, boomers, anyone can really succeed in life. So take a listen and enjoy.
Basically, the key thing I would say here is take a step back, take a deep breath, and give yourself some space. So often we just put our nose down to the grindstone and we start working and we don't even really know what we're working on. We just know that we're busy, and being busy feels better than not being busy. So we're just busy. And the sad thing is we're spending a lot of time, energy, effort, and bandwidth on the wrong thing. So take a step back, dude, and just be like, okay, what am I passionate about? Like, let me list these things out. What am I skillful at? What have I gained experience-wise over the past number of years, over my lifetime? And really write those things out and, be consistent writing these things down for 5 days. This is a 5-day exercise. And then see by day 5 where the overlap really is starting to lie between your skill sets and your expertise. And your passions. You're going to see there starts to be some overlap there. That's what's called the zone of genius right in there. In your zone of genius, that's where you're going to best operate. That's where you're best going to be able to serve the world and first start growing your audience. So within that zone of genius, find that niche.
So that was Mr. JLD, John Lee Dumas, from episode number 8. Great episode. And I'll tell you this also, what makes this episode even more special is that during the intro to the episode, I had a very special guest. That's right. If you listen to it from the beginning, the guest bears the same last name as mine, and he's 7 years old. So that is a big hint. But listen to it, episode number 8 with John Lee Dumas from EO Fire. Next up, I want to showcase episode number 19 with Mr. Todd Henry, the great content creator, the author, consultant, speaker, podcaster. He is the author of his latest book called Louder Than Words. Harness harness the power of your authentic voice. And that's what we're all about. Harnessing the power of you, your strengths, your story, your authentic voice. And this was an excellent conversation. Todd, he's written many books, including the first one called The Accidental Creative, and then his second book, Die Empty. He's been podcasting also for a long time, and he's great at what he does. And on this particular episode, he talked about being a Gen Xer and focusing on doing things and doing work that really matters, and not just focusing on the what, but the why. Take a listen.
And I think that, many people spend their entire life living according to everyone else's priorities, doing work according to everybody else's whims and wishes. And they get to the end of their life and they realize they've spent a significant chunk of their life doing work that's not reflective of who they are. And it's not a very satisfying way to live. And it's certainly not the way to have massive impact. So I think it's important. It's absolutely critical to anyone who at any stage in their career, but especially when you get to that mid-level, mid-stage of your career. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm in my early 40s, right? I'm right squarely down the middle, I think, of Gen X. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for all of us to ask questions about why we're doing, not just what we're doing, but why we're doing what we're doing and where it's all leading, because it's the only way to build a body of work that we can be proud of.
So that was the clip from episode number 19 with Todd Henry. Excellent episode. Definitely check out his podcast, The Accidental Creative, and his book, Louder Than Words. Great book, great guy, very valuable insights he gave us. Next up, we are rounding this out, and the next showcase that I want to focus on, is Mr. Hal Elrod, Yo Pal Hal, from episode number 5. Now, you talk about fascinating, inspirational, motivational, all of the ationals words that are out there. You talk about stories that motivate you and inspire you. Hal has one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. And you definitely need to check out this episode. He is the author of the book called The Miracle Morning, the not so obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m. And this book is another book like The One Thing by Jay Papasan. This is another book that just really broke through last year. And I grabbed it and I tell you, I couldn't put it down, and it has transformed my life. And it's all about helping you really change every area of your life by really having a great, consistent morning routine. And I tell you, he changed me. I mean, I am a quintessential night owl all of my life. And after reading this book, I now get up earlier. I'm more motivated. I have more energy. And, you really need to check out this book. Check out the episode. Hal Elrod is doing some amazing things as a leader, as an entrepreneur. And this book is definitely a game changer. And this particular clip that I want to play for you, he talked about becoming more as a person. And by establishing that morning routine, you can definitely do that. So take a listen to this, and after that, listen to the entire episode, and your life definitely will be changed. Take a listen.
So, that's what the Miracle Morning is all about. The premise of the Miracle Morning is focused on who you're becoming, right? Going back to that Jim Rohn quote, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development because it's determined by who you become. And so in our society, the focus is typically on doing, right? You want more, do more.
Right.
And what I've found is that the real secret to extraordinary success isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. And when you focus on becoming more, what you actually find is you get so much better at just who you are and how you think and how you approach things that you actually find that you can start achieving more by doing less.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. The average person is just overwhelmed with all the stuff they have to do. The people that are really successful, typically they figure out, dude, I just got to become more, and then I can actually do less and achieve more. And that really is it. Most people I know that are either millionaires or on their journey, it's like they don't work 80 hours a week like the person that's making $60,000 a year trying to get to $1 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's it. So shift the focus from doing more to becoming more. And you start to see that your outer world really does reflect your inner world quicker than you might imagine possible.
So that was from episode number 5, Yo Pal Hal. That is what he's known for, but it's Mr. Hal Elrod from The Miracle Morning. And again, I was so excited to chat with him because I actually read the book before I did the interview with him. So I knew about him and I loved the book. I had already started to implement the principles in my life. And so when I got a chance to really hear his story and have him on my show, it was definitely a treat for me. And trust me, it will be a treat for you if you read his book and he has a podcast as well. Listen to his podcast called Achieve Your Goals. So Yo Pal Hal Elrod, episode number 5. Next, we have a very, very, and I say very twice intentionally, special episode number 22, because it is the first time that I had a duo on the podcast. I had a married couple, Lamar Tyler and Ronnie Tyler, from the very popular website, blackandmarriedwithkids.com. That is right. They came on my show and it was exciting for me because I had 2 fabulous, exceptional Gen Xers who happen to be married as well. So they are the power couple behind, again, the brand, not just website, but the brand Black and Married with Kids. And they created this website because they were frustrated with certain images that were being portrayed in the media when it came to married, not only Black marriage, but marriage in general. And so they really dug into their passions. They saw an opportunity and they created this brand, and they are doing exceptionally well. And on this particular clip, Ronnie, she talked about how they first came up with the idea and how they got started. So it's great inspiration and motivation, especially for Gen Xers who are looking to be entrepreneurs. Take a listen.
Well, actually, it just came out of really something that Lamar was doing at work. He was, working at corporate, and he was working on websites and blogs for a corporation. But of course, there were a lot of red tape and things of that nature when it came to getting his ideas approved for the site. Mm-hmm. And so one day he came home and he said, this is something that we could do for ourselves. Let's start a blog together. And I was like, okay, why not? I wasn't really familiar with the concept, but, I was game for it. Okay. So we put our heads together and we thought, like, what is a topic that we're both going to be interested in over the long run? Something that will keep our interest, something that we're passionate about. And for both of us, it was relationships. It was marriage. We really didn't like the negative portrayal of marriage, especially in the African American community, and just a lack of positive images. And so that's where the idea for Black and Married with Kids.com came from. And Lamar came up with the name. And as soon as he said it, I was like, oh my gosh, you're a genius. So I love the name, and it really took off from there. And so that's where the whole idea of it, and we started in December of 2007.
That was actually Ronnie. She really, it was great for her to really tell the story about how they came up with the idea, and Lamar came home from work. And I tell you, especially when you hear stories from individuals, especially people in our generation that are also tackling the 9-to-5, but they have this idea and they really want to start something and build something of their own. And then when you hear stories like that, it really does motivate you. And Lamar and Ronnie, they were an awesome couple to have on the show. And she and Lamar, they really pull back the drapes on what makes their business thrive the way it does. And it was great to hear a married couple talk about building a business together. And that was great, because a lot of times you may not see that. And, it's difficult, not only establishing and building a business by yourself, but when you try to do it, tackling married life and being a parent, and also tackling the stresses of having a 9-to-5 job at the same time. And they did that. And they talked about that in detail during that episode number 22, with Lamar and Ronnie Tyler from blackandmarriedwithkids.com. Now, lastly, the last showcase episode that I want to focus on is from episode number 17, last but not least, with Mr. Michael O'Neill, the host of the very successful, award-winning podcast, The Solopreneur Hour. He was definitely a treat and a blast to have on the show. Michael O'Neill, his brand, and he's a brand guy. He actually, before he started podcasting, he was, I believe, a creative designer, a marketer, and he's all about brand. But he launched this show, the Solopreneur Hour. Great podcast, great guy. And on this particular clip that I want to showcase, he talked about brand. As I mentioned, he's a brand guy. He talked about the importance of establishing your brand when it comes to succeeding as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business. And, I thought it was a really great treat. And also at the end of that, clip, you also get to hear another side of Michael that you may not know existed. Take a listen.
I like Zag. Zag right now is my number one business recommendation. It's a book by Marty Neumeier.
Okay.
And it's called Zag. And I'm a proponent of making sure that people really nail their brand. They really have to get their brand dialed. And if they do, then everything else opens up and becomes much easier in this world, the world of kind of online business and solopreneurship. So if you mess up your brand and you become kind of an also-ran and you're just doing the same stuff everybody else is, then it doesn't go as well as you want it to. So you really have to differentiate yourself. You really have to have a unique approach. And that's what that book does. That book, Zag, is very instrumental in defining how I created the Solopreneur Hour, how I create these other brands. Zag is the thing.
Awesome, Zag, and we're gonna have that link to that book and the Sting song in the show notes for you all to enjoy. That was great, Michael.
We got that. We got a little Lionel. Go easy like Sunday morning. Yeah. We got what else we got? We got
love it.
Hall & Oates with Daryl Hall.
Well, you got to sing that too. Now you can't just sing, easy and not sing 101. Come on, man.
You gotta wait. I gotta forget the lyrics. Play that game tonight. That's it.
So that was Mr. Michael O'Neill from episode number 17, and you know why I'm laughing. So he dropped some major value on why it's important to Zag, and that also I will also double down on that book. Zag, it's a great book. I've read it. If you're looking to really build a brand and to break out from the competition, definitely read Zag. But Michael hit us up with some vocal ability, some talent there, and he is a musician. He plays drums. He's a great drummer, but with the Lionel Richie and the Hall & Oates, and we talked about those songs in the episode. But great way to end. That's a great way to end that episode, episode 17, and a great way to cap off and in our recap, listen back showcase for this episode. So just quickly going back through. So first we talked about and showcased episode 21 with Gretchen Rubin, the happiness queen. Episode number 1 with Chris Brogan, the first episode on Gen X Amplified. Then we had a chat with Jay Papasan. We played a clip from that episode, which is episode 16, the author of The One Thing. Then after that, Mr. Paul C. Brunson from episode number 3. Phenomenal, great matchmaker, business leader, entrepreneur. He's doing some great things in 2016. So watch out. He has a lot of things that's coming. Then Dory Clark from episode number 2. Then we had Michael Port, episode 18. Mr. Steele the Show, and then Mr. Scott Monty, episode 23, former head of social media for Ford Motor Company. Then episode 10 with C. Chapman. Episode number 11, Mr. Chris Ducker, Mr. Virtual CEO, Mr. Upreneur. Episode number 15 with Lucretia Braxton, the podcast host of Hello Friend. Very beautiful, very lovely, very great person, very down to earth. Then Mr. E.O. Fire himself, John Lee Dumas, episode number 8. Then Mr. Todd Henry, great author, podcaster, speaker, the author of Louder Than Words, great book. Then Mr. Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning Guy. Wake up early, get that morning routine going, okay? He's from episode number 5. Then the married couple, the first couple of married life and breaking through game-changing business, Lamar and Ronnie Tyler from Black and MarriedWithKids.com. And then last but not least on this very special Listen Back Best of 2015 of Gen X Amplified, from episode number 17, Mr. Solopreneur Hour himself, the one and only Michael O'Neill. Okay, there you have it. Our season 1 recap. 2015, season 1, 25 episodes, and we showcased 15 of our exceptional Gen Xers. But I would be remiss, as I mentioned earlier in the intro, I would be remiss if I did not mention our other exceptional guests, because everyone brought a great story to the podcast. So starting off, from episode number 4, Mr. Rich Brooks on becoming a change agent through digital marketing. Episode number 6, Holly Homer from kidsactivitiesblog.com, and she talked about growing over 1 million Facebook fans for her business. Great conversation. From episode number 7, Mr. Mike Ambassador Bruni on having no more reasonable doubt in your career. Episode number 9, we talked all about social media best practices with Corina Essa. From episode number 12, Mr. Jason Swank on building systems and niching down your target market. You have to niche down. The riches are in the niches. Episode number 13 with Lee Caraher on managing millennials in the workplace. We talked about millennials, so that was a really fun chat. Episode 14 with Stephen Essa on the power of webinars. And last but not least, from episode 25, Lou Mangello, former attorney, now a Disney expert. And he is the host and founder of WDW Radio. And he talked about finding your true passion. So again, there you have it. Season 1, Gen X Amplified. So grateful for you for listening in, for your download, and for being part of this journey. Make sure you go to genxamplified.com, where you can listen to all the actual episodes. Definitely check that out. Now, we will be back really soon to bring you new guests, new conversations, new stories for season 2. So get ready to be empowered and inspired directly in your earbuds. So again, until next time, happy 2016 and all the best to your success. Take care.